What if every decision you make leads you down a path you never expected? Imagine losing everything you once loved, only to find hope in the most unexpected place. This is the story of a Mara woman whose choices would echo across generations. Tund, a child who rose from the ashes of abandonment to become a light for others. Their journey is a lesson in pain, redemption, and the incredible power of second chances. The city of Lagos never truly sleeps. Its nights are alive with the hum of traffic, the laughter of street vendors, and the electric pulse of dreams being made or broken under neon lights. Among the city's many faces, a young woman named Amara stood out. At just 20 years old, Amara was already a legend in the nightlife of the city. She was beautiful, quick-witted, and fiercely independent. Her friends often joked that she could charm the moon out of the sky if she wished. Amara's life was a kaleidoscope of late-night parties, expensive dinners, and whispered promises in the dark corners of upscale hotels. Men, both young and old, powerful and ordinary, courted her with gifts and money, accepted them all, convinced that life was meant to be enjoyed, not endured. Yet, beneath the glamour, there was a cost. Amara's parents, Chike and Ifama, were deeply religious. Kay, a respected pastor and founder of a thriving church, had raised his daughter to value humility, faith, and honor. To them, Amara's wild lifestyle was a daily heartbreak. Chike would sometimes plead with her, his voice trembling. "Amara, my child, the world may offer you gold, but at what price? Remember who you are." Kay, but Amara, headstrong and wounded by her parents' disappointment, refused to listen. She turned her back on her family, determined to carve her own destiny. Freedom, as Amara discovered, came with its own chains. Her nights grew longer, her relationships more fleeting. She began to see her body as a commodity, a tool for survival and luxury. The city whispered about her, envied her boldness. Others pitied her, but Amara kept moving, unwilling to let anyone see the cracks in her armor. It's easy to judge someone from the outside, isn't it? But every choice has a story, every wound a reason. Amara's story was just beginning. One evening, as Amara returned from another night of revelry, she felt an unfamiliar heaviness in her chest. Weeks passed, and the feeling grew. She brushed it off until one morning she collapsed in her tiny apartment. Frightened, she made her way to a local clinic. The doctor, a kindly woman with gentle eyes, ran a series of tests. The results were devastating. Amara was pregnant. The world spun. Atia, she had always been careful enough, at least. She remembered the countless times she had ended pregnancies before, convinced that motherhood would be the end of her freedom. But this time was different. She pleaded with the doctor for another abortion. The doctor was firm, telling her she had been warned before. Another procedure could cost Amara her life or her womb. For the first time, fear crept into Amara's heart. She left the clinic in tears, haunted by the doctor's words. With no family to turn to, and no true friends, Amara faced her pregnancy alone. The months crawled by, each day heavier than the last. When the pain finally ended, a baby boy was placed in her arms. But instead of love, Amara felt only anger and resentment. She saw the child as the weight that had dragged her down, the reason for her misery. In that moment, standing in the sterile hospital room, Amara made a decision that would change both their lives forever. Under the cover of darkness, she wrapped her newborn son in a thin blanket, walked through the winding streets until she reached the edge of a sprawling slum, and, without a word, placed the baby on the ground. She turned her back and walked away, ever looking back, never wondering if he would survive the night. In the labyrinthine heart of the slums, fate was about to intervene. That night, the slum was quieter than usual. The only sound, a desperate, piercing cry, carried through the alleys. echoing off crumbling walls, unsettling even the stray dogs. Chike, a middle-aged man known for his generous spirit, was passing through on his way home. He had heard many things in these streets: arguments, laughter, music, but this cry was different. It was raw, pleading, and unmistakably that of a newborn. He hesitated, torn between fear and compassion. As he stepped closer, he saw a tiny bundle on the ground, shivering, its cries now weaker. Chike's heart broke. He scooped the baby up, cradling the fragile life against his chest. Who could do such a thing? Who would leave a child here? He murmured, glancing around, half expecting someone to appear and claim the baby. But the street was empty, the darkness unyielding. Chike hurried home, his mind racing with questions and worries. Fiamma, his wife of 10 years, greeted him at the door. She gasped when she saw the baby. "Kay, whose child is this? What happened?" Chike explained, laying the baby gently on their worn sofa. Fiamma's hands shook as she checked the baby over, her maternal instincts taking over despite her shock. Their own marriage had been marked by years of longing. They had prayed, fasted, visited doctors and healers, yet the blessing of children had always eluded them. This child's unexpected arrival was both a miracle and a risk. What if the mother comes back? What if the police think we stole him? Fiamma worried aloud. Chike shook his head. "I couldn't leave him there. He needs us. Maybe this is our answer." The couple spent the night tending to the baby, feeding him, cleaning him, and trying to calm his cries. Fiamma found herself staring at his tiny face, wondering about his mother. Who was she? Why had she left him? By morning, the news of the abandoned baby had spread. Neighbors whispered as they passed Chike and Fiamma's small house. Some were sympathetic, others suspicious. The local women gathered at the water pump, speculating. "Did you hear? Kisi, Chike found a baby in the slum last night. God works in mysterious ways. Okay, maybe it's a blessing for them, okay, or maybe trouble. You never know with these things." Chike and Fiamma ignored the gossip, focusing on their new responsibility. They named the baby Tunda, name meaning returns, because to them it was a sign that joy could return to their lives. Days became weeks, and Tund began to thrive in his new home. Fiamma doted on him, singing lullabies passed down from her grandmother. Chike found himself smiling more, his heart lighter than it had been in years. Yet the couple remained cautious. They kept the story of Tund's origins quiet, fearing questions from authorities. Every time a knock came at the door, Fiamma's heart skipped a beat. Still, as the months passed, Tund became the center of their world. They watched with awe as he learned to crawl, then walk, his laughter filling the small house with life. Sometimes, family is not about blood, but about the hands that hold you, the hearts that choose you. For Chike and Fiamma, Tund was proof that love could grow out of even the darkest places. But happiness in the slum was always precarious. Tund grew up hearing whispers, children taunting, adults muttering, "Tess, the foundling boy. His real mother must have been cursed. No wonder he looks nothing like them." Though Chike and Fiamma showered him with love, Tund felt the sting of being different. At school, he was called Slum Baby, an abandoned one. Some days, the names rolled off his back. Other times, he came home in tears. "Mama, why did they say these things? Why am I not like the others?" Kid would ask, choking back sobs. Fiamma would hold him close, stroking his hair. "You are our son, Tund. What others say doesn't matter. We chose you, and we loved you." But in the quiet moments, Tund wondered about the mother who had left him, the family he might have had, and why he was different. Despite the taunts, Tund was a bright, curious child. He excelled at his studies, surprising his teachers with his sharp mind and gentle spirit. He became known for helping others, tutoring classmates, sharing his lunch, comforting younger children who cried. Chicken Ifama watched him with pride. He is a blessing. I see God's hand in his life, Chike would say, smiling. It was in these early years, amid hardship and prejudice, that Tun's character was forged. The slum may have been his cradle, but it would not define his destiny. One evening, as the family sat together on their rickety veranda, Tund turned to his parents. Papa, Mama, when I grow up, I want to help children like me. I want to be someone who saves lives. Kike's eyes glistened. You can be anything, my son. Your story is only beginning. Asterisk, while Tund blossomed in the care of Chike and Ifeoma. Far across the city, Amarea's world was changing in ways she never expected. After abandoning her child, she felt a brief surge of freedom. Her old life beckoned with its bright lights and endless parties. But beneath her bravado, Amara was haunted by memories she couldn't erase. The echo of her baby's cries sometimes returned to her in dreams, mingling with the sounds of the night. Still, she forced herself forward, determined to chase pleasure and security, whatever the cost. Sometimes, the things we run from become the shadows that follow us everywhere. For Amara, those shadows were growing longer. It wasn't long before Amara caught the attention of Chief Alumide, one of Lagos's most powerful and enigmatic politicians. Chief Alumide was known for his wealth, influence, and for always having a beautiful woman on his arm. He had 5 wives, but that didn't stop him from pursuing Amara with gifts and promises. Amara, who had always dreamed of security, saw in Alumide a ticket to the future she craved. She became his favorite, attending lavish parties, wearing fine clothes, and living in a luxury apartment he provided. Gazing in the mirror, Amara would tell herself, "This is what I deserve. I will become his wife one day. I'll never go back to the slums." But the higher she climbed, the more precarious her position became. Chief Alumide was generous, but unpredictable. Amara quickly learned that in his world, love was a commodity easily replaced. Time passed. Amara's status in the city grew, but so did her desperation. She watched as Chief Alumide's other wives bore him children, securing their place in his life and his wealth. No matter what she tried, Amara could not conceive again. She visited doctors and traditional healers, drank bitter potions, and spent hours in prayer. Each month that passed without a child intensified her anxiety. Alone in her room, she would pray through tears. "God, if you can hear me, give me a child. Just one. I'll do anything. Forgive my past." But the silence was unbroken. Chief Alumide's patience wore thin. Though he continued to provide for Amara, he reminded her, often sometimes, cruelly of her failure. "You are beautiful, Amara, but what is beauty without a child, Kim? I need heirs, not ornaments," he'd say coldly. His words cut deep. Amara began to feel the walls closing in. Her friends, once eager to bask in her reflected glory, drifted away. The city that had once seemed so welcoming now felt cold and hostile. Back in the slum, Tund was coming of age. His teenage years were marked by turbulence and triumph. The taunts he endured in childhood gave way to harsher bullying at school. Some of his classmates, jealous of his academic success, whispered about his origins. Despite the pain, Tund found solace in books. He stayed up late at night, reading by candlelight, dreaming of a future where he could help others and break free from the cycle of poverty and shame. "He is different, Chike. There's a greatness in him." "I feel it," Ifeoma whispered one night. "He will do things we can't even imagine," Chike agreed. As Tund grew, so did his curiosity about his past. One afternoon, while helping Ifeoma clean, he found an old, faded blanket with a pattern he didn't recognize. Something about it stirred a deep longing within him. "Mama, where did I come from?" he asked quietly. Ifeoma hesitated, then pulled him close. "Kay, you came from love, Tund. That's what matters." But the unanswered questions lingered, shaping the young man he was becoming. Meanwhile, Amara's fortunes continued to wane. Chief Alamide grew distant, spending more time with other women. Amara, anxious and lonely, hired a new maid, Blessing, to help around her apartment. Blessing was sharp-witted and quick with a smile, but she had secrets of her own. She listened carefully to Amara's phone calls, noting her desperation to secure her future. One afternoon, Blessing called her boyfriend, Sei, a notorious scammer in the city. "This woman is sitting on a pile of cash. I know how we can get it," she whispered on the phone. Seji laughed, already plotting their next move. Seji befriended Amara, presenting himself as a savvy businessman with lucrative investment ideas. Desperate for hope, Amara was drawn in, seeing in Sei the possibility of finally controlling her own destiny. She invested heavily, signing documents she barely read. Then days, Blessing and Sei vanished, taking all of Amara's savings with them. Alone in her apartment, Amara screamed, her cries echoing in the emptiness. "No, not again. Why is this happening to me?" Kay. Her cries went unanswered. Kay. The city outside continued on, indifferent to her pain. Amara's world unraveled quickly. Without money, she couldn't pay rent. Chief Alamide, hearing of her troubles, sent her a curt message. "Amara, I wish you well. I am a busy man. Please do not contact me again." Kay, alone, penniless, and with her health failing from years of stress and neglect, Amara was evicted from her apartment. The luxury she had once flaunted was replaced by the grim reality of the streets. She wandered, unrecognizable to those who had once envied her. Hunger gnawed at her belly. Night after night, she slept in alleys, breathing the familiar foul air of the slums, the very place she had once abandoned her son. While Amara drifted deeper into despair, Tund's world was changing rapidly. He had survived the cruelty of the slum, the stinging words of classmates, and the uncertainty that shadowed his origins. Through it all, Chike and Ifeoma's love remained his anchor. Tund's academic gifts blossomed. He won prize after prize in inter-school competitions, drawing the attention of teachers and community leaders. His dream of becoming a doctor took root and grew, watered by his own suffering and the compassion he learned from his adoptive parents. Sometimes, the greatest hearts are born from the deepest wounds. Tund was determined not just to escape the slum, but to return as a healer, a voice for the voiceless. He told Chike and Ifeoma, "Mama, Papa, I know what I want. I want to be a doctor. I want to help children who have suffered like me." Kima hugged him tight, tears in her eyes. "You will, my son. You will change the world." Tund studied harder than ever. When the results of the national exams were posted, the entire slum held its breath. Tund had not only passed, he had scored among the highest in the country. A full scholarship to one of Nigeria's most prestigious universities awaited him. The celebration in Chike and Ifeoma's home was simple but heartfelt. Neighbors came, bringing food and small gifts. Even those who once whispered about the foundling now praised his brilliance. "You see, Ifeoma, even the slum can give birth to a king." Chike beamed, while Tund was lifted up by his community. Amara sank further into isolation. The loss of her money, her home, and the last remnants of her pride left her adrift. She tried seeking help from old friends, but doors were closed in her face. Pride kept her from returning to her parents, even as she ached for forgiveness. Her health crumbled. Years of stress, poor nutrition, and untreated diabetes took their toll. One night, a fever gripped her so tightly that she collapsed in the street. Local children, at first frightened, ran to fetch help. Amara woke in a crowded public hospital, confused and unable to move her legs. doctor explained the truth as gently as possible. Ma'am, the accident and your illness have damaged your spine. You may not walk again. The words felt like a death sentence. Amara lay in her hospital bed, staring at the ceiling, haunted by every choice she'd made. Chief Alumide never visited. Blessing and Seji were gone, unreachable. Kisu's only visitor was a social worker who explained that her hospital bills were mounting. When she was finally discharged, she returned not to a home, but to the slums, her only refuge. In her wheelchair, Amara begged for coins, her once beautiful face now hardened by suffering and regret. She avoided her reflection in puddles, afraid of the woman she'd become. Have you ever hit rock bottom, only to discover that the only way out is through the kindness of strangers or the strength you never knew you had? Amara's journey was not over yet. Asterisk University life was a revelation for Tund. He joined study groups, volunteered at clinics, and mentored younger students. For the first time, he felt accepted for his mind and his heart, not judged for his past. Yet, the question of his origins lingered. He found himself drawn to stories about abandoned children, always wondering if his mother was out there alive, suffering, or indifferent. He sent money home to Chaik and Ifeoma, who remained his compass and his comfort. During holidays, he returned to the slum, organizing free health camps for children and mothers. He became a local hero, though he shied away from the spotlight. Your past does not define you. The world can be cruel, but you can be kind. You have the power to change your story, he told local youth. As Tund approached the end of his studies, he was offered an internship at a major hospital in the city, the very same city where Amara begged for survival. Their lives, long separated by circumstance and choice, were about to collide again. One humid afternoon, as Tund drove home from a late shift, he noticed a commotion by the roadside. In the middle of the traffic, a woman in a battered wheelchair had rolled into the street directly in front of his car. His heart stopped. He slammed the brakes, swerving just in time. The crowd gasped, then surged forward. Tund jumped out, rushing to the woman's side. "Ma'am, are you hurt? Let me help you." The woman looked up, her eyes dull with defeat. For a moment, neither recognized the other. But the wheels of fate were turning, drawing them inexorably together. Tund knelt beside the woman, his medical instincts taking over as he checked her for injuries. The crowd pressed in, some offering advice, others just curious. "Why did you stop? You should have just let me go," she whispered, her voice thick with despair. Tund stared, startled by her words. There was something familiar in her face, a flicker of recognition he couldn't quite place. But in this moment, she was just another soul in pain. He waved for a taxi, helping her into the back seat. "Take us to St. Mary's Hospital now," he ordered. The emergency room hummed with life-crying babies, beeping monitors, doctors barking orders. Tund stayed by Amara's side as she was wheeled in. His mind raced. Why did she want to die? What haunted her so deeply? As a doctor in training, he'd seen despair before, but this woman's anguish cut through his professional detachment. Amara drifted in and out of consciousness. In her feverish dreams, she saw flashes of her past the hotel rooms, Chief Alumide's cold eyes, the tiny face of a newborn she left behind. She whispered a name she barely remembered. "Tund, my son, forgive me." Tund stiffened. Did she just say his name? It had to be a coincidence, but the seed of curiosity was planted. As Amara stabilized, Tund checked on her daily. Her chart listed her as unidentified female, late 30s, paraplegic, malnourished. He brought her water, coaxed her to eat, and listened when she confessed her pain. "I have no one, not a single soul, who cares if I live or die. I made terrible choices. I abandoned my own child. If I could go back, I would change everything," she sobbed. Her words hit Tund like a wave. Memories of his own childhood, the blanket, the rumors, the ache of not knowing came flooding back. Oh, cool. This broken woman truly be his mother. He decided to investigate. He found the old blanket Ifama had saved, brought it to the hospital, and gently laid it on Amara's lap. Does this look familiar to you? Amara froze. Tears welled in her eyes as she traced the faded pattern with trembling fingers. That was my baby's. I left him in the slum. I never forgave myself. Tun's heart thundered in his chest. He ordered a DNA test, barely able to sleep as he waited for the results. The world seemed to slow as days passed. When the results came, they were clear. Amara was his biological mother. He stared at the paper, emotions raging, anger, disbelief, relief, grief. He ran through the hospital, torn between confronting her and running away forever. He finally entered her room, clutching the test results. Why? Why did you leave me? Why didn't you look for me? He demanded, his voice raw. Amara wept, her body racked with sobs. I was young, foolish, scared. I thought I could run from my mistakes. Not a day went by that I didn't regret what I'd done. She reached for his hand, but he pulled away. You left me to die, but I survived. Because of Chaik and Ifamath, they became my real parents. Amara nodded, tears streaming. I know I can't undo my past. I only ask for your forgiveness someday, if you can. Tund couldn't sleep that night. Memories of Afiam's lullabies, Chaik's proud smile, and the kindness that shaped him battled with the pain of abandonment. He visited Chaik and Afiama, sharing everything. They listened quietly, then spoke with the wisdom of parents who had loved deeply and lost much. Your mother made terrible mistakes, but she is still your mother. Hate will only poison your heart. Forgive if you cannot for her, but for yourself, Chaik advised softly. We will always be your parents. But maybe you can help her find her way back to herself, Ifama added. Tund sat in silence, letting their words sink in. The next day, Tund returned to Amara's bedside. He saw her not as the woman who abandoned him, but as a soul crushed by regret. I don't know if I can forgive you today, but I want to try. Not for your sake, but for mine, he said quietly. Amara wept, whispering her thanks. For the first time in years, she felt the faintest spark of hope. With Tund's encouragement, Amara began physical therapy. It was slow, painful work, but she persevered, driven by the hope of rebuilding a relationship with her son. She also started to share her story with other patients, warning them of the dangers of pride, greed, and self-destruction. Tund, too, found new purpose. He threw himself into his work, driven to help others who had been abandoned or forgotten. He spoke at community events, using his story to inspire resilience and forgiveness. Over time, Tund and Amara learned to speak not just as mother and son, but as to survivors, each with scars, each with hope. Tund introduced her to Chaik and Ifama, who welcomed her with compassion and grace. Amara, transformed by pain and the gift of a second chance, dedicated herself to helping abandoned children and single mothers, determined to prevent others from repeating her mistakes. There are wounds only time and love can heal. Sometimes forgiveness is the hardest journey, but also the most powerful, as weeks turned to months. The wounds between Tund and Amara began to heal not overnight, but gently, like old cracks being filled with gold. Their conversations, once awkward and painful, grew into long, honest talks about the past, the future, and everything in between. Amara spent more time with Chaik and Ifama, slowly earning their trust. She insisted on helping Ifama with housework, even from a wheelchair, and listened to Chaik's stories about faith, resilience, and the meaning of true love. One evening, the four of them gathered for a simple meal. For the first time, Laughter floated through the house, soft and tentative. At first, then blooming into joy. Maybe this is what family is meant to be, not perfect, but willing to heal together, Tund said, smiling. Amara's transformation did not go unnoticed. Word spread through the slums and beyond about the woman who had once been the city's most glamorous beauty, now dedicating her life to serving others. She started a small support group for single mothers and abandoned children, using her story to encourage others not to repeat her mistakes. She volunteered at Tund's free health camps, organizing food drives and sharing her journey with anyone willing to listen. I lost everything chasing empty dreams. But I found hope again by facing my past, not hiding from it. If you feel alone, please reach out. There is always a way back, she would tell young women. Her humility became her greatest strength, and slowly, respect returned where gossip and judgment once reigned. Tund finished his medical studies at the top of his class. He was offered positions at several prestigious hospitals, but chose to stay close to his roots, working at a community clinic and leading outreach programs. He became a mentor to dozens of young people, especially those who felt lost or unwanted. He shared his story openly, using his journey from slum baby to doctor as proof that the past does not decide the future. His work caught the attention of local media, and soon national outlets wanted to interview him. He always gave credit to Chike, Ifema, and even Amara, reminding everyone that love can come from the most unexpected places. I am the product of many people's love, some who gave me life, others who gave me hope. It's forgiveness, not anger, is what changes the world. He said in one interview, the impact of Tund and Amara's story spread far beyond their immediate family. In the slum, children who had once been mocked found new confidence. Parents who had lost hope in their own children reconsidered, inspired by the example of Ifema and Chike's unwavering love. Local leaders began to invest more in education, health, and support for single mothers. The stigma surrounding adoption and blended families lessened. Churches and mosques invited Amara to speak, and she used each platform not to hide her past, but to show how change is possible. Late at night, Tund often sat outside, looking at the stars. Sometimes Amara joined him, and they would talk quietly about the mysteries of life. If I could go back, I would have made different choices. But I can't. All I can do is try to be better now, Amara would say softly. We can't change the past, but we can change how we live from this moment on, Tund would reply. They made a pact then to dedicate themselves to lifting others, to be living proof that even the deepest wounds can heal with honesty and love. Years passed. Tund married a fellow doctor, and Amara became a beloved grandmother to their children. The family celebrated each new graduation, each birthday, each small victory as a triumph over darkness. Chike and Ifema, growing older, often reflected on the unexpected blessings that had come from one desperate night in the slum. They thanked God for every twist in the story that had brought their family together. The story of Tund and Amara became legend, not just in their neighborhood, but across the region. Their journey was taught in schools and featured in documentaries, inspiring thousands to believe in second chances and the strength of forgiveness. If you take one thing from this story, let it be this: the power to redeem, to forgive, and to change lies within us all. Sometimes, the family we choose is more powerful than the one we're born into. Sometimes, our greatest pain becomes our greatest purpose. Tund stands before a crowd at a charity gala, Amara beside him, Chike and Ifema in the front row. We all have moments when we fall. What matters is how we rise and who we reach out to on the way up. Okay? Open your heart, help someone who needs you, forgive someone who hurt you, or ask for forgiveness yourself. That's how we change the world, one story at a time. Elsewhere in the world, far from the city slums, Blessing and Sajin, once the architects of Amara's greatest betrayal, were discovering that ill-gotten gains rarely bring lasting happiness. Living abroad, they enjoyed luxury for a while, but Seji's appetite for risk led them down darker paths. Their relationship, built on deception, began to crumble. One night, Blessing stared at the lavish apartment around her and felt only emptiness. She remembered Amara's broken face and the trust she destroyed. Guilt became a shadow she couldn't escape. "We can't keep running. I thought this money would make us happy, but I can't sleep at night," she confessed to Seji. "We did what we had to. The world is hard. You take what you can," he replied. But Blessing knew better now. She began volunteering at a shelter for immigrants, trying to make amends in small ways, even as she kept her past a secret. The lesson: betrayal is a wound that often cuts both ways. Inspired by Tun's story, a group of local teenagers formed the Unity Club, led by a determined girl named Zainab and her quick-witted friend, Connell. They organized cleanup drives, tutoring sessions for younger children, and support groups for kids bullied for their backgrounds. Zainab, herself, the daughter of a single mother, stood proudly at the front of the community hall one day, speaking to dozens of families. "We are not our parents' mistakes. It can be the start of something new, something better." Their efforts didn't erase poverty overnight, but hope became contagious. More children returned to school. More parents found the courage to ask for help. For the first time in decades, the slum buzzed with cautious optimism. As Tund and Amara's story spread, many sought out Chaik and Ifema for advice. Couples who had struggled with infertility, families who had lost children, and even estranged parents and teens came to their small home, seeking wisdom. Love is not about possession, but about presence. Be there for your child even if you can't change the past, Chaik would tell a grieving father. Ifema started a small kitchen garden, inviting neighborhood children to help plant and harvest vegetables. She used these moments to teach about patience, nurturing, and new beginnings. Tund, now a respected doctor and advocate, was encouraged by friends and mentors to share his journey in writing. He spent nights pouring his memories onto the page. The pain of abandonment, the warmth of adoption, the struggle for identity, the miracle of forgiveness. His memoir, From the Slum to the Stars, became a bestseller, translated into several languages. All proceeds went to the foundation he and Amara launched dedicated to education, health, and family support for vulnerable children. The foundation's annual gala became a highlight of the city's calendar. Amara, striking in her humility and grace, was often the keynote speaker. Her honesty, unvarnished, and powerful moved many to tears. One day, Amara received a letter from her aging parents. Years had passed since their angry estrangement, but now her father's handwriting trembled with emotion. "Dear Amara, we have watched your journey from afar, our hearts heavy with regret. We disowned you when you needed us most, and for that, we are sorry. If you can find it in your heart to forgive us, we would welcome you home." Tund drove Amara to their rural village. The reunion was not easy. Tears were shed, apologies spoken, but in those humble surroundings, another broken family began to mend. Amara's parents met their grandson for the first time, marveling at the young man who had risen above every obstacle. Old wounds did not vanish, but new bonds began to grow. The slum, once synonymous with despair, became a model for community-led change. Health clinics thrived, literacy rates climbed, and the stigma around adoption and blended families faded. Other neighborhoods sent delegations to learn from their success. Tund's story inspired new policies. Local officials increased funding for single mothers and at-risk youth, and churches and mosques joined forces to provide shelter and counseling. When one life is transformed, 1,000 others can be touched. Redemption is never just about one person. It's a seed that grows into a forest. The years rolled forward, and the children of the community, those who had grown up hearing the story of Tund and Amarab began to come into their own. Among them was Femi Tund's eldest son, a thoughtful boy with his father's passion for justice and his grandmother's gift for storytelling. Femi watched his father in the clinic, saw his grandmother speaking at community gatherings, and listened to Chaik and Ifama's stories beneath the mango tree in their backyard. Inspired, he gathered his friends to form a youth journalism group called Voices of Tomorrow. Their mission, to give every child in the slum a platform to share their dreams and struggles. We have to tell our stories, not just the pain, but the hope. For more than what the world sees, Femi told his friends. Articles appeared in city newspapers and on radio shows, changing the way outsiders viewed the slum. For the first time, the children's voices were heard far beyond their dusty streets. Amara, now respected community leader, began receiving invitations to speak across Africa and even internationally. She traveled to Kenya, Ghana, South Africa, and eventually 2 conferences in Europe and America, sharing her journey from abandonment to redemption. Standing before diverse audiences, she spoke not as a victim or a saint, but as a flawed human being who had found courage in her darkest hour. Shame kept me silent for years, but I learned that healing begins with honesty. If you're living with regret, know that you are not alone. Forgiveness is a bridge not just for others, but for yourself, she would say. Her words resonated with people from all walks of life, single mothers, estranged families, and those who'd made mistakes they thought were unforgivable. As Tund's medical foundation grew, he expanded its reach beyond his home city. Clinics were opened in rural villages, scholarships awarded to children who'd been abandoned or orphaned, and a network of counselors provided therapy for families in crisis. Tund partnered with doctors and social workers from around the world. Together, they created the Healing Network, a coalition dedicated to breaking cycles of trauma and abandonment in African communities and diaspora. In one memorable scene, Tund addressed a gathering of young doctors from Nigeria, Ghana, and the U.S. We must treat wounds, seen and unseen. Every patient, every child, every parent deserves dignity and hope. Let's be the generation that chooses compassion over condemnation. Annual festivals replaced the old days of mourning. Residents celebrated not only their cultural heritage, but also the resilience and progress of their neighborhood. The Festival of New Beginnings featured music, theater, storytelling, and awards for children who had overcome adversity. Amara, Tund, Chaik, and Ifama were honored as pillars of hope. Their story was enacted by local children who played out scenes of despair, rescue, forgiveness, and joyful reunion. The audience, some laughing, some wiping tears, stewed in ovation at the final curtain. Stories emerged of other families finding reconciliation. A mother and daughter, estranged for years, found the courage to speak. A young man who had run away from home returned, inspired by Tund's forgiveness. The stigma that once clung to those from the slum faded as graduates from the Unity Club and Voices of Tomorrow thrived in business, medicine, education, and the arts. Some returned to give back, just as Tund did, their pride in their roots unshakable. On a quiet evening, Tund and Amara sat together beneath the stars. The sounds of laughter and music from the festival fading in the distance. I used to think my greatest mistake would be my only legacy. But you showed me that love can redeem anything, Amara said softly. You taught me that forgiveness is not a single act, but a way of life. Our story is not just ours anymore. Belongs to everyone who believes in second chances, Tund replied. They fell silent, both aware that the web of lives they touched would continue long after they were gone. Chaik and Ifama, now elderly, gathered their grandchildren around them. With twinkling eyes, Chaik told the story of a night that changed everything: a cry in the darkness, a choice to take in a child, and all the beauty that followed. Never be afraid to do what is right, even if it costs you. Kindness is the seed of every miracle. Haifama held their hands, her voice gentle. And never forget, family is not just who you were born to. It's who stands by you, forgives you, and walks with you through every storm. The closing scene shows children tons, Senab's siblings, Femi's friends marching toward a sunrise, notebooks and stethoscopes in hand, laughter echoing. Overhead, the city skyline glows, no longer divided by invisible walls of shame and despair. The story of Amara and Tund is not just about the past, it's about the future. The courage to forgive, the wisdom to change, the hope that begins in every heart willing to try again. The decades since Amara's return, the family gathers for a reunion in the city's new community center, once a crumbling hall, now a place of laughter, learning, and celebration. The walls are decorated with photos, Tund as a child in Chike's arms, Amara speaking at international forums, children planting gardens, students in graduation robes. Elders, parents, and children mingle as music fills the air. Tund, now, with flecks of gray at his temples, stands with his own son, Femi, and young Zainab. His Unity Club has become a regional youth movement. To family by birth, by choice, and by the journeys that bring us together. May we always have the courage to forgive, to love, and to begin again, Tund says. Raising a glass, the camera pans through the transformed neighborhood. Vegetable gardens, murals depicting stories of hope, a library bustling with children, clinics where no one is turned away. Tund's foundation sponsors scholarships and health drives. Amara Support Group has expanded into counseling services and business training for women. Children run and play no longer burdened by shame, but lifted by the stories of those who came before them. Once, these streets echoed with despair. Now, they ring with possibility. Healing, it turns out, is infectious at the festival of new beginnings. Amara, now silver-haired but strong, takes the stage for what she says will be her final public address. Thousands gather, many watching online from different continents. I am proof that people can change, that mistakes, even terrible ones, do not have to define your whole life. But change is not easy. It takes honesty, humility, and the courage to face those you've hurt. If you are holding on to regret, or anger, or shame, let it go. Let love in. Forgive yourself, forgive others, and you will find freedom you never imagined, she says. Her voice rich with emotion. She steps down. The applause is thunderous. Many in the crowd are crying, hugging loved ones, or making silent promises to themselves. Femi and the Voices of Tomorrow group take the stage, reading poems and stories from children across Africa. Their voices are strong, their stories honest testaments to the power of visibility, compassion, and hope. We are the children of hope. We are the future, born from forgiveness, shaped by courage. We will not waste the pain of those who came before us. We will build on it, and we will build something beautiful, Femi says. That night, Tund sits alone for a moment, watching the stars above the city. He reflects on the journey, the cruelty, and the kindness, the loss, and the love. It began with a cry in the night, a choice to love a stranger, and 1,000 small acts of courage. If one person can change, a family can change. If a family can change, a community can heal, okay? And if a community can heal, why not the world? He thinks to himself, maybe you have known loss or regret. Maybe you've hurt someone or been hurt. This story is not just about Amara or Tund, it's about all of us. We all have the power to forgive, to reach out, to build a new story from the ashes of the old. If you need hope, let this be your reminder. You are never too lost to be found. You are never too broken to be healed. You are never too late to begin again. A sweeping montage shows scenes of healing across the world. A mother and daughter reconcile. In a quiet kitchen, an old friend sends a message after years of silence. A teacher encourages a struggling student. A single act of kindness sparks laughter in a crowded market. The faces blur, but the message is clear. Healing is possible, everywhere, for everyone. If you are moved by this story, pass it on. Forgive someone. Ask for forgiveness. Okay. Offer a hand where you once turned away. Let your own life become the start of another story of hope. Every ending can be a new beginning. The choice is yours. Thank you for watching. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more true stories of courage, compassion, and transformation. Tell us in the comments, what will your new beginning be? What part of this story resonated with you the most? Who do you need to forgive for? What dream will you chase now? Share your heart in the comments below. Let's keep this ripple of hope moving together.